we're starting the recording. Start now. Guys, are you there? Kimaya and Shivangi?
Yep. Hi, yes.
Okay, awesome. So, hi everyone. Welcome to the second talk for this series by BITS Goa Women in Tech. We are a community of BITS Goa's women in technology where we collaborate, discuss ideas, and share opportunities. We comprise essentially of all women who are part of our college, be it juniors, seniors, or even alumni, led by a team of four. We aim to provide guidance for networking, discovering the right opportunities, and finding a safe space for conversation and mentorship. Our mission is to nurture a platform where all women can encourage and learn from each other. So, we are excited to present today's session on pursuing a thesis in college. Whether you're interested in research, have already started mailing professors in different universities, or are just curious, this talk will help provide clarity regarding the application process, timeline, and requirements, and give perspective regarding various fields of study, how to choose your interest, and other general tips. So, the two speakers we have here today with us are sure to inspire you with their thesis stories and how they navigated through the entire process. Kimaya Bedarkar is a PhD student at the Max Planck Institute for Software Systems, working in programming languages and real-time systems. She did a year-long, fully funded thesis in the same institute. Being a Math plus CS student at BITS, we are really excited to hear your stories. Our next speaker is Shivangi Gupta, who pursued her thesis in medical robotics at the University of Illinois. She was an ENI student here, interested in robotics, and is now applying it and assisting and rehabilitating those with disabilities. Really glad to have you here. We hope we can start the session off with Kimaya. I hope you guys gain a lot from this.
All right. Okay, sure. Yeah, we can start with um, everyone can hear me?
Yeah, yeah, we can do it.
Okay. So my slides are with you. I think like I just put the slides in the template that you gave me. So should I share my screen or?
Yeah, could you share your screen because we won't be able to record it otherwise.
Okay, sure. I can share my screen. Um, 1 second. Okay, I will share my screen. Okay, are you able to see my screen?
Yeah,
Okay,
it's
are you
visible.
able to see my screen?
Yeah, it's visible.
Okay, then let's start. Okay, so it's going to scroll down here. Okay, okay, let's start. So I am this person. Okay, so I'll start with a short about me. Thank you for the very kind introduction, but I'll just add some things to that. So as was said, I am a 2017 batch student. I did mathematics and computer science in BITS Goa. I started in 2017. I graduated like now. I didn't have the best CGPA in school. I mean, I don't know how it is about you, but I find it hard to manage acads. I mean, there is a lot to do, and it was like not the easiest time for me. I found it quite challenging to like manage 2 degrees, and in the middle of the pandemic, and in the middle of my uh, college life, this pandemic happened, and it's been a bit hard. So I did a fully funded year-long thesis, as she said. Again, I did a fully funded year-long thesis in MPISWS in Kaiserslautern, that is in Germany. um, it was a very fun experience. I think it was one of the high points of my college career, and I will tell you about it in due time. Now I'm a PhD student in here in MPISWS, and again, I'm working in real-time systems and programming languages. I don't expect you to know much about like real-time systems or programming languages. Both are not very popular fields. I mean, certainly not as popular as ML. But also, I would like to sort of talk a little bit about these two fields also in due time. I'm really interested in getting people and getting good young people from BITS Goa into both these fields, and I would like to talk about them as well. And the last thing about me is I stayed up making this presentation because I've still not learned to like manage time and stuff. And apparently they expect you to work as a PhD student. Did not know that. So it's been so I have this coffee with me now and it's helping. Um, okay, so that was about me, and so first I want to share about like how I got my thesis, and this is pretty much the only experience I have except for like other experiences that I've heard, but like I my own experience is the one I've known most closely, and this is where I draw my insights from about applying, working, etc. So first I would like to tell you this and then say what insights I draw from this. So when I started university, I had no idea what math was. I just put the topics in order of like their cutoffs, and I got math. Um, and when I went to my second year, I realized I really liked math. I was very interested. I liked all these formal systems. I liked proving from first principles. I liked writing proofs and doing this sort of fundamental reasoning that math involves. If someone here is from math, you'd probably know about this. Um, and I really hated CS. I didn't have this kind of heuristic thinking that CS sometimes requires, and I really hated CS because of it. And I was sure I would never like CS. Well, fast forward a bit. I was learning data structures and algorithms for my summer internships, and at that point, I really started liking CS. Like, I joined this academy, DMAX Academy, which was very big in my time for preparing for summer internships and placements. I don't think they're taking classes anymore, but at that time it was like a very big thing. So I joined them, and I really liked the teacher, and he introduced CS from this kind of like mathy perspective, which is why I really started liking CS over time. At some point I decided I wanted to like work in sort of the intersection of maths and CS, and that led me to work with former BITS faculty Abhishek KR Singh. Sadly, he's not at the institute anymore. He's now a postdoc in Tel Aviv. But I was very fortunate that my tenure in BITS overlapped with his, and we started working on a project. The project never really took off. The I think the point is that BITS is not really a research institute. It's more focused on like teaching, which has its perks, of course, but the consequences that the project never really took off. Nevertheless, it got me introduced to this field of programming languages and formal verification, which is something that I do now. At that point, like after this project with Abhishek sir, and like even before this, I kind of knew that I wanted to work on this area, but I had no idea what this area meant. Like I just knew I liked using this software. And well, let's get it out of the way. The software is called Coq. It's COQ. It's a French tool, and apparently French people name their tools after animals, and this is perfectly normal, but leads to a lot of jokes anyway. So I just liked I just knew I liked working with this funny name tool, and that was it. I didn't know anything else. And my answer whenever you are out of information is to be online a lot. So I joined Twitter at that point, and I started following all these academics, and I was very surprised to see that a lot of people are working in this area, because to me I never saw people around who were like working on this area. In our university we just look at people who are doing machine learning and related stuff. I mean, nothing against machine learning, but it was just there is no visibility for other topics. So I didn't know if like this was a topic that people actually worked on. And being on Twitter sort of like made me realize that there is a very sizable community of people working on this area. Um, also on Twitter, I reached out to a PhD student who seemed cool. Um, at that point, I felt more sort of a bit more comfortable talking with women, or like someone who's also from an underrepresented gender. Um, the reason I mean the reason is just that I felt more comfortable. Like I felt like I could be more vulnerable and sort of say, I just don't know anything and I still want to work on it. And there is no reason why I didn't feel the same sort of I didn't get the same sort of feeling with other people. But with this PhD student I met, I really got this feeling, and I reached out to her. We talked, and she said, oh, and like she gave me a lot of information about the field, about academia. And I didn't know it at that time, but she's like a really big name in the field, and she was like humble enough to just meet with a random person from India and help out so much. And then she said, I'll send out a tweet saying you're looking for like thesis. I mentioned to her that I was looking for these thesis opportunities, like a research internship stuff. And she said, I'll reach out to my contacts, and if I hear anything, I'll let you know. And she just sent one tweet saying, oh, I met this student, she wants to do this, do you know anyone? And to my surprise, a lot of people replied. Like, I think there were at least 7 to 8 replies. I reached out to all of them. Not all of them got back to me. Some of them did, but then there were other issues. Like there are some in especially in US, there are some DARPA funded. DARPA is like this defense research program something, and so if projects are DARPA funded, sometimes you can't work on them, and some other issues. I also had an opportunity to like sort of had an offer to work with an university in Lisbon, Portugal, but they required me to have a bachelor's, and I didn't, because we get both of our degrees together. So I applied to a bunch of places, and finally the only thing that worked out was MPISWS. And suddenly I had this I mean, I really wanted to do a thesis, but I was not expecting such an amazing opportunity. Like suddenly I had this offer that they were like, oh, we will pay for your flights, here's your house, here's your stipend, and just we'll help you with the entire visa process. And this was quite unexpected. I didn't expect to like get such a good offer right off the bat. And I had heard about like the funding situations of other people's thesis, and it didn't I didn't realize that like such a well funded thesis would be an option, especially since like I was not very well established in my field or anything. I didn't have like very good projects or anything. I just had like interest and some familiarity with some things. But anyway, this thing worked out, and that's the story of how I got my thesis. You can see that it's super random. There's a lot of chance involved. There's a lot of luck involved. A lot of just being online a lot. Like I met this girl on Twitter because I spent like a lot of time on Twitter, and I just met her. Um, and yeah, so that's the story. But nevertheless, now that I have to be here and say something about how I got my thesis, I'm going to say it's a bit more than chance, and I'm going to sort of now focus on some other areas that maybe are not as talked about. So here I'm assuming that you kind of are familiar with what a thesis is, and the general things for how you apply to a thesis, like cold mailing professors, and sort of assuming some familiarity with this process, because I think you have had such talks before. And what I want to do is I want to like sort of focus on um, like some smaller points which are probably not as discussed about. um, so I'm going to start with my timeline. So this project that I mentioned that I did with the faculty of BITS, Abhishek sir, I did it in my 4-1. So once I was done with like the summer internships, um, like interviews, I had offers from Microsoft and Intuit, and I decided, well, enough. And yeah, I mean, I was not allowed to interview after that anyway. But so 4-1 was kind of like the first half of 4-1 is was sort of dedicated to this internship search. Once I had the internship, I um, started to like look for an area of interest, and I worked with Abhishek sir. By the time 4-2 began, I had a pretty clear of idea of what I liked and what I wanted to work on. In early February, I joined Twitter and was on my phone a lot, and spoke to some PhD students on Twitter. And this girl sent out this tweet, which got replies and stuff. By mid February, I had already applied to MPI. So I'm still working with the same supervisor that I did my thesis with. His name is Bjorn Brandenburg. And so I reached out to Bjorn in mid February. I applied. We had a couple of interviews. Like I had a 1 hour discussion with him. I met his students, and then he said, "Sure, you can do the internship." Once he said yes, by early March, we started the visa process. And I think like this timeline between 4 and 5 was the hardest part of this entire process. So when I applied for the visa, this was in 2021, like March 2021. So COVID was still present, but things were starting to recover enough so that people can travel and so on. At that point, like it was very hard to get appointments. It was very hard to do this visa stuff. MPI is very supportive with this. Like the people that we have at MPI who look after the whole visa situation are super competent, and they helped a lot with this. I was supposed to start the thesis in September. I started working remotely from September, but on finally on 4th October, I could actually fly to Germany and start my thesis in Kaiserslautern, where I was for about 9 months. um that is my timeline. This is just to give you a brief idea of like what to sort of expect in the process. There are some things which I've not showed here. Like, sure, I applied to MPI, but I also applied to a bunch of other places who said no, or who wanted to like interview, or who wanted code samples which I did not have, and wanted some or like some logistic things that didn't work out. So even in the visa process, like I applied once, it didn't work out, I applied again, and there was a lot of like messy things. But overall, this was the timeline, and this I think makes sense, especially considering like the how much time it takes to get a visa and so on. Like this timeline, I think it makes sense. So now, as I said, I'm going to like focus on like smaller parts of this process of applying for a thesis. And the first thing I am going to be talking about is finding an area of interest. So I think like I even if I say so myself, I think I'm a good person to talk about this. And the reason is that my areas of interest are not super common. You guys might not have heard of real-time systems or programming languages, and I'll briefly tell you a bit about it just to sort of show you how this thing happened and why it's not super common. So real-time systems is not really a topic which is taught in the undergrad, which is why some of you might not know but about it. But real-time systems are basically operating systems for safety critical software. So examples would be a pacemaker, an aeroplane, stuff like that. Is stuff where timing guarantees are of utmost importance. So in a system, we basically reason about timing guarantees. We say that if there is a task, it will be completed at max by this time. And that's what like real-time systems is mainly about. Of course, there are a bunch of other things in real-time systems, but my area is this. um, Programming languages, as the name says, is about programming languages. But I, in particular, work on this field called interactive theorem proving. So at some point, people figured out that you can use computers to write and have machine checked proofs. And using some sophisticated things known as type theories and type systems, they came up with these proof assistants, where you can interact with with the proof assistant to write a machine checkable proof of a statement in first order logic. And this is the other thing I do. So I combine these two things to write these machine checkable proofs of real time systems. And this is how I make uh, this is how like we make obtain guarantees about timing stuff. This is what I do. And so how did I for me, like, how I came about these things was a totally random thing. At first I was not interested in real time systems. I was only interested in in interactive programming, interactive theorem proving. And how I came across this was just, as a math student, I thought I would never be good at computer science because I didn't like this heuristic stuff, as I mentioned. But then, like in this like data structures and algorithms course, I was good. And I started to look for like reasons why, if there was some sort of link between proof writing and programming. And one day I was wasting time on Reddit, and I came across a post where another person was looking for the same link, like between proof writing and between programming. And they said, oh, there's this thing called Curry Howard isomorphism, which says that programming and proofwriting is the same. And this blew my mind. This was the answer to all my questions. And that's why I decided to work in it. It just sounded cool. And then I like mailed one professor at BITS, A. Bhaskar, who used to take logic in computer science, because this is like a logic related area. And he redirected me to Abhishek sir, who I ended up working with. The second thing, just be curious about things. Just look around. I don't know, like waste time on the internet, like do nonsense stuff, and like probably you'll find something which is fun and which you like. It's like the universe is random, just take a shot. The second thing is internet is your best friend. Like the main thing that helped me throughout my thesis was like being online, like whether it being finding contacts on Twitter, whether it's finding this random topic on Reddit, or other things. So use the internet in a good way, like use social networking sites also, but like do good things, like Google whatever you want to know, and like maybe you'll find out something new, and just find your career path. It's that random. The third thing is finding your community. Once I had this area of interest, like I knew, okay, there's something called interactive theorem proving. There are these things that you can use to write proofs, but I had no idea if anyone is working on this. So, like, I can't work on something like maybe people were interested in like 100 years ago and like decided that it's useless and moved on, right? So you need to see if there are people working on this, and so you need to find out your community. Now, what do I mean by community? I mean by people who publish in these areas, like professors who publish in these areas, PhD students who publish in these areas, and the conferences where they publish. By finding these two things, you can like find people that you want to work with. Like if you say, okay, I want to work on interactive theorem proving, then there is a conference, ITP, interactive theorem proving. See who publishes there. You already get like 10 professors there that you can apply to, and you see, okay, so this is the conference of the people who are interested in that. And this exists for every field. Like if you go to computer architecture, there is this society sig, SIG is special interest group, and there is a SIG for every field of computer science. So for computer architecture, there is a SIG Arch. For programming languages, there is a SIG Plan. um, for embedded systems also, there is something that I don't recall, but I can share the link for the SIGs later. So find this like sort of society responsible for like your area, and this is how you can like find people, find conferences. um so now I want to like just uh, talk about some points about applying for thesis, and sort of go through the process and some of the important points. So what is important when applying for a thesis? So the first thing I think that you need is clarity on your motive. Why do you want to do a thesis, or why do you want to do a research internship? So while we're on the topic, like when you're mailing professors, I would avoid using the word thesis. Thesis in like other universities actually means something. So in other universities, in thesis, like if you're getting a master's degree, you have like 1 year for a thesis where you do research. You are expected to publish at least one paper in a top tier conference, build your like research vision and thesis statement on it, and then even defend it. And this is not what we do. So what we are applying for are just research internships. So it'll be good if you have this like clarity when you send emails, just apply for a research internship. So I digress. Coming back to the point, have clarity on your motive. Ask yourself, what does a research internship give me? If the answer is traveling to a foreign country, if the answer is bragging rights, if the answer is clout, then like don't do a research internship. It's, I think it's wrong. I mean, it's still up to you. You can still do a research internship for these reasons. I would advise against it. So what should your answer be? I think your answer should be that I want to try it out. I want to see if research makes sense for me, or research in this field makes sense for me, or research in this lab or this country makes sense for me. So the answer could be that. The answer could also be that you view it as a stepping stone to graduate school. So you might also think that you want to go to graduate school, and doing a research internship will help you. You'll have experience to write about, you'll have a paper. This is also a perfectly acceptable answer. Nobody wants internship to be your end goal, so you can say this. And you need clarity on this so that you can include it in your email, so that when professors read it, they see, okay, this is what you want, and if this is the same thing that they also want, then they can do it. Secondly, as I mentioned, I did a year-long thesis, but I had a couple of options. Since I had a summer internship, I had to do a thesis in my 5-1. In my 5-2, I could have done a thesis in another place. I could have done a PS, but I chose to do a year-long thesis in the same place, and there are a couple of reasons for this. The first reason is that I wanted to stay in one place for longer, so that I do actual tangible work. In some fields, the barrier to entry is low, and you do good work as soon as you get into the field. For my field, that's not true. You need to know some things, you need to have some theoretical background before you can get to a stage where you make actual progress. So this is why I wanted to stay in one place for long, so that I actually get a paper out of it. And I did. And the other thing is visa issues. I mean, it's hard enough to get a visa for one place, but if you're in did I receive anything on Google Meet? Okay. So getting a thesis is hard enough, but getting visa for one semester is hard enough. But if you want to get visa for like another for a second semester thesis from while you're in a different country, this becomes super complicated. I didn't want to go through that. The third thing that I wanted to talk about, like these are a bunch of random points. They're like not really connected. They are just things that I think need to be talked about and aren't. So the third point is like structure of a lab. I think in again, because our institution is not really a research institute, we don't talk much about the world of research, the world of academia. So I just want to talk a bit about this. 1 second. Um, Everything is fine, right? Like you can still hear me.
Yeah, yeah, everything is fine. Should go on.
Okay, cool. Um, yeah. So then, sorry for interrupting, and I can get back. Okay. So, yeah. So, again, one of the things that I think is not talked about is like what is a research lab? What is the structure of a lab? And you need to know this if you're going to sort of get your foot into the world of academia, if you're going to approach people, talk to them. This is some background information that you need to have. So how it works is there is generally a PI, a principal investigator, and this is the sort of like the academia equivalent of team lead. This is the person who decides what you'll be working on, and like the overarching theme of your group, what topics you choose to work on, and so on. Then there are the postdocs. So these are people who already have a PhD, who want to go into academia, and before like going for a directly going for a faculty position, some people choose to do a postdoctoral fellowship. And these are the postdocs. Again, they are pretty established in their field since they already have a PhD. And there are some people who choose to do their thesis with postdocs. Like this might also be an alternative when you're thinking of people and places to apply to. Like you can also just apply to postdocs, and if they're senior enough and if they have like the bureaucratic stuff sorted out, you can also have a postdoc as an advisor. And it's not a bad idea. I've met some like postdocs who are just at the same level as faculty. Then there are the PhD students, people who are working on their PhD, like me. And then there are the interns. I was an intern last year. Now, all labs don't have interns, but some of them do. Some of them encourage interns. So, for instance, in MPI, like we have a big culture of interns. Like we have interns coming all the time. I was an intern for like 9 months, and all the internships are fully funded, and it's an amazing place to be. There are some other. So I work in Max Planck Institute for software system. There are other MPIs also. There's one for informatics. There is a couple of different ones, and they also accept interns as far as I know, and mostly they are funded. So this is also an option. And then, so how do you look for research internships? So you write to PIs, you ask them if their group takes interns, and you ask them if this is a possibility, and that's how you do it. And so where does the funding from for research internship comes from? Where does the funding for research internships come from? So how it generally works is the PI is also responsible for writing grant applications and receiving grants, and there are a number of bodies giving grants. So in the EU, like there is this very big grant called the ERC grant, which is the European Research Commission, and a lot of people in MPI have the ERC grant. um, so there are some government bodies. Sometimes there are also private companies who are giving grants, and they generally give the grants to the PI, and the PI is supposed to use those funds for research, and they might have earmarked some of it for postdocs, PhD students, for equipment, for travel to conferences, and some of it might even be for interns. And this is where your funding comes from. So in my case, my funding came from Beyond's grants. And also, I think part of my funding came from MPI because MPI really encourages interns. They have some program wherein you can also use MPI funds to pay for interns. So you might find places where, especially places which are very well funded, there those are the places where you might find funded internships. So now you have all this knowledge. What do you do with it? Well, now comes the hard part. You just cold mail people. You just find people. You find it by being like by stalking people on Twitter. You find it by asking PhD students working in the area, or you find it by, I don't know, like you read some paper in some project in school and you like the author, and you mail them. You just say, I am a person from this institute. I want to do a research internship. You say for how long, and what do you expect from it. And sometimes they get back to you, and when they get back to you, they might ask for an interview. So now this interview is not super formal. At least in my field, it's not. Like, again, if you go for some ML stuff, like I think they ask you like proper linear algebra and probability and statistics questions, combinatorics questions, stuff like that. But in less well-known fields, there might not be a proper interview. So like when I met Bjorn for the first time, we just chatted for an hour. He just asked me like, just tell me about yourself. Why do you like this area? How did you come across it? And I told him this whole nonsense story of how I came across this area, what I liked, and he said yes. And I was talking to him yesterday, and he said, I took a chance on you. Like you didn't have like really solid projects. You didn't have like very good writing samples. Writing samples is something you send to them. Oh, another thing. So when you mail professors, they might ask you for coding samples and writing samples. Coding samples show them how good you are at like hacking, whether you write good code, clean code, or whether you are just in this college mentality of like writing shitty code and getting a submission no matter how dirty the code is. And writing samples show them how good you are at writing, and writing is something which is very, 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 very important in academia. because you have to write papers, you have to give talks, you have to write messages to people, emails. So writing is something very important. So he said, I took a chance on you, and I don't know why he took a chance on me. I didn't have coding samples, writing samples, and I think it was just because I was genuine about what I wanted to do and what I like. And the last thing I want to talk about is the super, super annoying thing, which is logistical issues. So, if you're an Indian citizen, I have bad news for you. You're from the global south, and it's hard to get visas. But I have good news for you. It's a bit easier to get visas for the European Union than it is to get visa for USA. So for USA, you would apply for a J1 visa, and this I did apply for. So at the end of my thesis in Max Planck, I had an offer to do an internship in Bloomberg in New York, and I applied for a J1 visa. But because I applied from Munich, I got additional processing. By the time my visa came, it was too late to start the internship, and I couldn't do it. So J1 visas are a bit hard. But getting to Europe is a bit more easier, especially now that hopefully COVID is dying down. Like visa embassies are open, there are appointments, and you can get visas. But the point being, you should look for internship in such time that it leaves you with enough time to get a visa. And trust me, it will take a long time to get a visa if you're Indian. So this is something you should be mindful about when you're planning your thesis. I met some people, I think in like August, who wanted to start a thesis in September, and like may it might have been nice to work with them, but the visa was just impossible. So this is something that we as Indians really need to be mindful of if you're making any plans. Incorporate visa delays in your plan. Um, then I have some general tips about applying for thesis. So I want to briefly talk about Europe versus USA. We know that a lot of people go to the US for thesis. At least I was not aware of a lot of people going to Europe for their thesis. But I did. It's a really nice place. I find it more sort of friendly than USA. As I said, the visa is easier. The second thing is, if you get a research internship in Europe, chances are it will be funded. It very rarely happens that people in Europe are working without getting paid. Europe has this like very strong opinion about it, that they don't make people work for free. And this is something that sometimes we fail to understand. We think that, oh, I don't know much, I've not even graduated, why should I get funding? But we should, like, we are doing their work, and we deserve to get funded, to get paid for that work. And in Europe, the chances are you might. There's just the issue of language barrier, which is not insurmountable. I mean, especially if you know like German or French or something, it can be easier. They're also starting to speak English, and it's not that bad, especially for a limited time. It's not bad at all. The second thing is networking. So just like use the internet to network with people. Like now, obviously, sitting in India, we can't physically interact with people in the states. Or oh, and this was like very one-sided. I really like Europe. The main issue about USA is funding and getting the visa, but otherwise, USA is an amazing place. I think they have more opportunities than Europe, and the pay is more. But yeah, that's the point. um, then about networking. So it's very important to network. Like all these opportunities that I got, like even Bloomberg, even MPI, um, happened because just I just reached out to people and talked to them, which is something very important. Like this is something you should do. And there is no sort of like recipe to it, like you just do it. And yeah, so just talk to people, like DM them on Twitter, send them emails, and just be genuine. Still all good. I saw that my Wi-Fi was buffering, but you can still hear me. Okay, cool. So yeah, I will stop shortly. I won't take up much of your time. um Okay. So this is yeah. This is that's also when you email professors, even if you don't get an opportunity with them, always ask them like if they know anyone else that they can refer you to. This is also a nice idea. You can get to know people through that. Thirdly, I just wanted to talk about reading papers. I know a lot of people say that when you're applying to places, you should like read the professor's work, read his papers, and talk to him. I think it's a bit overrated. I never read any papers when I applied for thesis. When I actually started working at MPI, that was the time where I read my first paper. And the reason is that these theoretical fields, there is a quite a huge barrier to entry. So, for instance, you wanted to work on pure math, I think you would have to study for like 2 3 years before you get to the level where you can read any paper. So like it's overrated. Just try to get a feel for what that person is doing, and just like try to figure out if they are in the same area that you are in, and that's enough. Like sometimes they might even redirect you to another area. Because I started working with Bjorn, I ended up working on real time systems, which is something I had never thought about. Lastly, I wanted to share some mentoring initiatives with you. So, for a while, I was on the board of Plan M. So, this is a long term mentoring program for programming languages. And what we do is we just match prospective mentees with mentors. Like, we have a huge database of mentees and mentors, and we match them. And this is another way to sort of like get your foot into the door, sort of enter the field of academia. Then like there are also these other and all of these um yeah, and then there is also this thing called the programming languages mentoring workshop. So this workshop happens at every PL at four major programming languages conferences. And if you get selected for it, then they also pay for you to like attend the conference. Like everything is covered, travel and everything. And it's a very nice thing. Like you meet people, and you get to attend a conference. You actually understand what you're supposed to do at a conference. Again, and they are especially welcoming to people of underrepresented gender and race. So this might be something to consider. Lastly, I found this like thread on Twitter by this guy Jeff Dean, which lists all such mentoring initiatives, and there is like a ton of stuff for MN and robotics, which I think he mentions. And in particular, I like the program for programming languages. And there's also one for computer architecture, which was like started by looking at the programming languages um, um, mentoring plan. Yeah, so that's all my information on applying for a thesis. Hopefully, some of it was helpful to you. It's not super structured. I've been really busy, and I couldn't polish the talk more. I would love like to spend more time on it. I also wanted to talk about my research, but I'm probably running over time, so I'm not going to do that for now. But if you're interested in any of the things that I do, uh, or like things even related to that, please reach out to me. We are hiring interns in our team. We are always hiring interns in MPI, and this is a very great place to be. I mean, you might not see it, but it's actually pretty nice, and I can definitely introduce you to some people. The best way to get in touch with me is email, and I'll share my email with all of you later. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Kimaya. It was a really nice talk. So we will now move forward to Shivangi Gupta.
Yeah, hi everybody. Am I audible?
Yeah, you're audible.
Okay, hi everyone, and thanks Kimaya for like a brilliant talk. I think you covered a lot of things, and I'll just try to skip over things that Kimaya already covered. But yeah, first off, I super agree with everything you said about like America, that it is definitely harder to get a visa and you will not get funding. I don't know anybody who has gotten funding in America, but yes, the opportunities are better there. Yeah, it's kind of a pros and cons thing, but yeah, it just really struck to me how perfectly right you were about that. So
Yeah.
I'll just also
One
go
more
on.
point to add about this funding thing. If somebody is not giving you funding, it might be a red flag, because funding shows that they are interested in giving you actual work. Because if they fund you and then you don't work, it might be a problem. But if they don't fund you, then it might also happen that they don't give you work and you waste your time. So this might also be a red flag to watch out for. Sorry, I won't interrupt again.
Yeah, no, I agree with what you're saying, but I genuinely feel like I don't know anybody who's done a funded thesis in America, but they've still
I
had pretty
agree.
positive experiences, like including my own. So maybe that's not like the only yardstick to measure. But yeah, sure.
I
Uh,
agree. I totally agree.
yeah, is my screen full screen visible, or is it on like the PPT thing?
It's only the PPT.
So I have to share my
No, no,
entire
no. The full screen
screen.
was visible.
Wait, like right now, can you see it going to full screen?
Huh, yeah, yeah.
Oh,
It's
perfect.
perfect.
Okay. Yeah. So, hi, everybody. I'm Shivangi. I just thought I'll kind of get started basically on what a thesis actually even is. Basically, it's like you do a research internship instead of like an industrial internship for either 1 or 2 semesters. And it's kind of like what the PS would do if you want to do a career industry, is what a thesis would do for academia. It is usually done like a university lab, but sometimes it is also done in like the R&D divisions of companies. So in the past, my seniors have done it in Microsoft Research and TCS Research. So that's generally called a corporate thesis. So, just to give a background about who I am, I was an ENI student in 2018 batch, and I'm really interested in medical robotics and surgery and anything to do with, medtech. Basically, I did my thesis in the second semester, and I'll try to highlight the differences between doing it in the first and second semester later. I was in the University of Illinois Chicago under Professor Myung-Hee Kim, and in the past I've had a lot of robotics experience. I also worked with some professors, and I was an intern at Walmart, and that's where I'm working right now. So yeah, I am not directly working on medical robotics at the point, but I am applying for my master's next year, so that's when I'll probably go to America again. So what are the advantages of doing a thesis? What do you actually get out of a thesis? So, first and foremost, it gives you like a very, very hands-on experience about what academia even entails, what it is like to write a paper, to conduct research in a lab, and to, um, actually like a glimpse into what your PhD life would be like. So, that's a really, really important thing, which because it helps you decide whether you want to do research in the future. Secondly, the labs that you get to do a thesis in, especially abroad, are incredible. Like the kind of equipment you would not usually get to work on in India. um, which is something like I don't know, the kind of things I worked on were really, really sophisticated, and I would love, I just want people to like apply for a thesis to just get to experience those things as well. Um, Thirdly, it is very, very helpful if you want to go for a master's or a PhD, because even if you don't get a paper out of it, like I didn't, you get a letter of recommendation from a professor in a foreign university, which is very, very important. Like it goes a long way in your application. Plus, you get experience and you kind of understand what you want to work on, and you can talk about it in your essay. So you write a statement of purpose when you apply for masters. You can write a lot about what you learn from it and the kind of things you know from it, which is very helpful. And even if you don't actually go for a thesis, sorry, just applying for it gives you a huge advantage in understanding what your field is like what kind of research is going on in the world, and what kind of opportunities exist out there, and whether you're even interested in that field. So, for example, I thought I loved robotics, but when I actually started to read papers to apply for robotics, I realized I actually think I like a very specific niche of medical robotics. So, those kind of things become clearer to you just by applying for a thesis and reading those papers and writing those emails. And uh, just beyond that, you get a lot of opportunities. You get to network with brilliant professors, brilliant PhD students, and I actually personally got to attend the biggest robotics conference in Philadelphia, and that was really, really interesting to, you have conversations with like-minded people, which I didn't get to do much because of like a little bit of a niche of medical robotics. So just going out and putting yourself out there is a big plus when you do a thesis. So now a lot of people kind of ask me whether it's better to go for 4-1 or 4-2, and there's no right answer. It totally depends on you. If you want to do a master's or a PhD immediately after your undergrad, then I would highly compulsorily recommend going in your 4-1, because your deadlines for applying for these masters and PhDs are actually starting in December. So if you go for a thesis after that in your 4-2, then you won't be able to use your LOR or your experience or anything from that in your application. So it's kind of pointless, whereas you would have had that whole semester to work on it in your 4-1, and it boosts your application a lot more. So if that is your aim, definitely go in your 4-1. Whereas if you want to kind of take a breather, the way I didn't want to immediately go, 4-2 was better because I got another semester to understand what my interests are and what I want to apply in, and to actually build my portfolio for the thesis. And another major thing is that if you go in your 4-2, you can continue working in that lab immediately after that, like a research assistant. So I'm kind of specifically talking about single degree, but you can just change that to 5-2 if you're in dual. So yeah, a lot of people just continue that thesis work after. Like I have a friend in NUS. He really liked his thesis in his 4-2, and he just didn't come back. He's been in Singapore since January. So that's something you can only do if you go in your 4-2. So that's something to think about between 4-1 or 4-2. Now, I think you might talk a little bit about an odd semester timeline. I'll talk about the even semester timeline. I know it's already like September, but if you're like a bit more junior and you're applying next year, this might help. So initially, I would say spending June or July to kind of just understand what you like, and preparing like a database of labs that you're like interested in. And so it's not a very linear approach to building a database. You can't just Google medical robotics labs in America. It actually comes from a bunch of different places. So you might find some labs through Googling, you might find some labs, as she said, through Twitter or even Reddit or on LinkedIn. Actually, surprisingly, LinkedIn had a lot of opportunities that just came. So you follow hashtags on Twitter, on LinkedIn, and you'll see opportunities coming up. And even if not opportunities, you'll just get to hear the names of labs. So that way, you just sort of making a list of where you want to go, and after that, you actually begin applying. So um, this is again subjective to what I had done. It worked out decently well for me and the other seniors I consulted about this. So once you have that database, you can just solely stick to cold mailing, and you don't have to waste your time searching for more labs that time, unless something comes in your lab that time. So um, yeah, to professors, cold mailing is the best option. That's what worked for me. And how to cold mail, I'll get to that as well. Another way is that you can contact PhD students in a particular lab on LinkedIn, because professors contacting professors on LinkedIn is a little bit unprofessional, and most professors don't appreciate it. So if you want like an instant response for some things, for example, I wanted to ask people about, do you even accept international students? What are you working on right now? And is there any project which is suitable for an undergraduate student? Some very basic queries. If you want to get sorted, you can always go to your PhD students on LinkedIn instead of bothering your professor about such an important thing. So the professor you actually pitch yourself to, whereas you can get your doubts cleared by the PhD students. And this worked very well for me. I would say about 60% of the PhD students I contacted replied to me, and that's a much better ratio than professors. I got 3 replies in total for like from professors, whereas PhD students, most of them were happy to like hear me out, and some of them even met me on Google Meet and like, just discussed the lab with me. So that's also a great way to build a community of people you like. So now my LinkedIn is filled with connections of people who are working in amazing labs, all over the world. So that's what I'm talking about. Like, even if you don't actually go for a thesis, there's no harm in applying, just because of getting to know uh, what the scene is like about that particular field of interest, if that makes sense. Yeah, and once you have gotten an acceptance, then there's a whole lot of work that needs to be done for the visa, and BITS also requires some nonsense. Okay, I shouldn't say that. A lot of forms to be filled, and those kinds of formalities. That's left for the end. I'll again deep dive into visas and stuff later. So I think Kimaya covered this pretty well about like I loved how she talked about just being curious and being on the internet. I love it. That's perfectly right. Another some other small points is that definitely do LOPs, DOPs, SOPs. Just try to, even if you don't particularly, if you're not sure that you will like it, just go for it, because then you will know whether you like it or not. So uh, if you think that, oh, what if I like data mining, say, then do an SOP in it and see, do you actually like it? And that's the best way, like, I think, to dip your toes into research. I had worked with these professors and these technical clubs I was a part of, so I had gotten a pretty good experience with robotics, but still not enough to be only in medical robotics. So you don't have to have like a perfectly tailored profile at all. Like, just showing that you're curious and that you've tried different things and that you have a basic experience in, say, Python or reading papers or MATLAB, all of that also contributes a lot to your portfolio. It just shows that you're not somebody who's applying for the sake of it, that you actually try. So yeah, that's my 2 cents on deciding our field of interest. um, like I'd mentioned before about making your database, Googling universities, definitely. Publications is also a good way. So what happens is that you might read one paper on Google Scholar, and that author might have worked with other authors from different universities and labs, and that's how you get to know that, oh, there's a nice collaboration happening between so and so university, and I also want to be a part of something like that. So just searching medical robotics on Google Scholar, and you get to know who is publishing, where are they publishing, and what kind of stuff are they even publishing, like what is the most trending thing. So that is something that helps a lot. And once I actually, like, liked a particular lab, I had an Excel where I would just write the basic information about that lab so that I don't have to go all the way back to open that website. So just try to mention briefly like they work on surgery and this and this and this. And then when I go back to it, I think, do I really want to apply here? Maybe not. I'll come to it if I have no other option left. So that's how you go about it. Don't outright reject a lab when you see it. Just make a list at least of it, and later on you can always narrow down to who you want to apply to. So that's how you make a pretty good database of places you want to go to. um, so now coming to actually writing an email. So cold mails is a very, very crucial thing, not even for a thesis, even if you're applying for an internship or a job, or if you're looking for help on masters. You really, really need to know the art of writing cold mails. I've taken these points from my friend Vedant, so I want to credit him for that. So, in your email, first, definitely be very to the point about why you're mailing them, that you're looking for a thesis for 6 months or for a year, whatever. Then you talk about your actual background and experience, that what you have done, and then try to link it to, like, how that's associated with their lab. Like, so I worked on MATLAB before, and I believe that that could be used in your lab in, like, building a particular thing. So actually show how your skills can contribute to that lab. And also then, to customize that email, you can talk about the projects that you saw listed on their website. So, like, if there's a, say, a upper limb prosthetic device that they're working on, then you say that, I saw your upper limb prosthetic device on the website, and I feel like something we can do to it is add a feedback mechanism through vibrations on the hand. That's an idea that came. That, although that's not something that they will accept, it shows that you actually cared enough to read their website, to give your own idea, and that you know enough to pitch such a thing. you know you don't have to actually worked on it. Like, no way, I had no idea how haptics work, but it was just something I proposed as, a thing which I thought might be done. And if they're actually interested in that idea, that'll be so cool, because you actually get to work on something that you propose. So just that's the way to show that you also have a brain of your own, even if not actually experience on that. And at the end, remember to add your CV, your LinkedIn, and if possible make a website. I did not get the time to, But when you actually do, you can showcase a lot of photographs of what you've actually worked on and have a more presentable format. A lot of times professors just click on that instead of scrolling through the CV, and they get a pretty good idea about your portfolio. um, just some small tips. Keep it short, structure it well, personalize it, because professors know when you have just sent them a template. They know, and they will not reply until you show that you actually have personalized it for them. And personalized doesn't mean changing the name of the professor, it's at least having one paragraph about how you're suitable for that particular lab. Timing is also important, because what the time might be in India is not what it is like in America or Germany or whatever. And you might be sending it when the professors are asleep. And by the time they wake up, they'll have like hundreds of emails. So if you're able to time it in a way that it reaches their inbox in the morning on a Tuesday or something, they might be more likely to read it, because they would be in their office on the computer anyways. um, Contact PhD students as well, and remember to follow up. If it's been like 5 or 6 days, send them another email just asking, and if once or twice they don't respond, then let it be. But everyone I know has had to send a follow up before they got a response, almost everyone. Another point about not using mail trackers. This might be counterintuitive because you want to know if a professor has read your email, right? But instead, what happens is that professors are smart enough that they put blockers for mail trackers. So even before he reads your email, he or she reads your email, or the email would just go into the spam folder. So you won't even get the opportunity to pitch yourself. So I would recommend against using mail trackers. Uh, okay, so one thing that came to my mind all the time, and I'm sure others have also faced it, is that you get no responses for days and weeks on end, and you feel extremely, extremely disheartened. Like literally come from me, maybe I sent 30 or 40 emails and I got three replies, and all I can say is that you just need one acceptance. The number of rejections don't matter. You just need one place to go for your thesis. So that's one person out of how many ever you send. So don't lose hope and just definitely give it a shot, because most of the times professors don't reject you that, oh, she's dumb. It's because they just don't have the funding to sponsor you, or the visa issues that they come, they don't want to deal with it, or the professor's not even read your email. It's 99% of the time some of these reasons. So don't be disheartened if that is something you're facing right now, in fact. So I just thought I'd slightly touch upon what I worked on, and so basically it was a pilot study to understand how much you can personalize an upper limb exoskeleton for ALS patients. So ALS is the disease that Dr. Stephen Hawking was afflicted with. So that causes a lot of muscle weakness. So you're trying to figure out how much you can personalize an exoskeleton for such patients and make it specific to their needs. So it was just a pilot study, and we were working on EMG sensors, which is electromyography. We were working on processing the data that we were getting from the sensors and capturing motion. So on the left, so like these are the kind of equipment which I was talking about, which is really interesting. These cameras actually capture your entire movement very, very accurately. So the software stack I worked on was MATLAB, Simulink, Python, Vicon, which is like the motion capture software, KinArm, which is the robot that you see on the right, and Dexterity, which is a control software, with very specific control software. So yeah, that is what I was working on. um, Coming to US visas. Okay, so it is a very, very long process, and you don't get appointments for months on end. So I would seriously suggest trying to get a US acceptance as early as possible. My acceptance came very honestly at the end of October. I was pretty late, and because of that, I only went to America in mid Feb. So for 1.5 months, I had to do a remote thesis because of that. So I regret I was quite late in getting that acceptance. So please be early in getting one. The visa that you would need is the J1 visa, which is an exchange visitor visa, and it will be initiated by your sponsoring department. So you can't just get a visa like in advance. It is specific to the university you're going to. And I was not funded at all. So you need to have a lot of like proof of funds, about, I don't remember the exact amount, about $18,000 or so needs to be shown as proof before you can get the visa. So that is something to keep in mind, and that's why I would say that if you are somebody who requires funding, definitely go for Europe universities. They are very, very good with like the funding, and the living expenses and everything is like much more moderate over there. um so some people had asked me for like an estimate, and I thought I'd like kind of make a basic one. So the most expensive thing was rent over there. Chicago's a little bit more expensive than other places, so that was about $900 for 5 months, my flights, visa. So all of this included, I paid about 6.5 lakh rupees for the necessary expenses, and over and above that, I was just trying to spend the entire weekend exploring Chicago. So that's again an unnecessary expense. I've not added it here, but yeah, if you include all of that, you touch just about 10 lakh rupees. So that is something that you should be prepared for if you don't have a funding. I'm really sorry about this. Yeah, so that was me. If you have anything, we can obviously have a Q&A session right now, but if you also want to talk to me one-on-one, you can reach out to me on LinkedIn, or I'll text my phone number on the chat. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Shivangi. It was great. Now we will have a Q&A session. So, Shivangi, can you go to the last slide where the
Sure.
Q&A is over there?
Oh, okay.
These are a few we got from the forms. So, if like both of you, any of you can choose what to talk about.
Kima, you can go.
Okay, so I will talk about CGPA since I mentioned it in my slides that I didn't have a very good CGPA. When I first met Bjorn, I talked a lot about how much I liked math, and he said, "If you like math so much, why are your grades so low?" and and I told him that I don't like all parts of math. I only like some parts of math, and in the ones that I like, I have good grades. And he seemed satisfied. In the end, he says he took a chance, so I don't know. But I guess like people don't really look at your CGPA. All the people that I replied to, that I applied to, just looked at like my projects and my interests. They said I had a good profile, even though they said no to me. Nobody ever mentioned my CGPA. I don't think it matters so much.
Yeah, I second that. Even I think at the time of applying, I did not have a great CGPA either, but that was just not a point of issue anywhere. Like, you do not get rejected because of your CGPA at all. They really, really only care about how much kind of research you've done in the past or what skills you have. But I know a friend of mine was a 5 pointer, and he did his thesis at NUS, and he got a PhD offer like straight from his thesis. So no, your CGPA does not matter. By when should a student decide whether they want to pursue masters or not? Um, so masters can be done anytime. Uh, I would say that most people go about like a year or two after working. Like that, beyond that, most people don't like to go for masters. Or you can do it directly after your undergrad. Both, like, everything works. But I feel like thesis के बाद decide करना is the best option. Which is why if you want to go directly after undergrad, 4-1 is when you decide whether you want to pursue masters or not. So yeah.
Yeah, so technically I already had a master's from BITS, so I didn't apply for a master's, and I decided to like do my PhD in the same sort of. So I started one project in the later half of my internship, which I'm still working on now. It's going to be my first major PhD project, and I decided to like not have a buffer year in between where I work, because if I'm doing the same work, it doesn't make sense to have a break. In terms of PhD, yeah, I think you can pretty much decide whenever you want. Just the only point to note is that, as Shivangi said, the deadlines are in December for applying. So you need to decide like which cycle you want to apply to, and then like if you want to start your masters in fall 23, you should be preparing your applications now. In fact, you should have started a month ago. So just be mindful of that.
I would just add one thing. If you are even slightly inclined towards masters, just kind of give your GRE. Like, I think
Yeah.
the best time to give your GRE is while you are still a student, especially if you're in your fourth year. Please give your GRE right now. It was I just gave my GRE a month ago, just when my job had started, and it was a little easy. But now, if I was even like slightly going to consider giving my GRE, I would not have been able to. I'm like working like 10 hours a day, so you do not get time. Please, just give your GRE. There's no harm, and your score is valid for 5 years. So just give it, even if you're in your second or third year, and just get that out of the way. So
Totally agree.
yeah. Uh, Third question.
We will have some questions from the viewers over here.
Yes.
We did.
Yeah.
Okay, did you answer the third question?
I
No.
think I had mentioned like
Huh,
this
in the
my side of the
yeah.
third question on why I should do a thesis. If Kimai wants to add something, she can. Yeah.
Yeah, I can quickly answer the third question, and then we can go
Sure,
to questions
sure.
from the audience. So, what are the other perks of thesis? What are the other perks of thesis other than the research output? I personally had a lot of perks. I made amazing friends in Germany, very cool friends. I had a lot of fun traveling in Germany. I went skiing, I went ice skating, I went bouldering. I was not successful at all of them, but I did it. Um, I earned money. I spent all of it, but I earned it. If you don't spend as much as me, you probably can save some money. Um, what else? I got an offer from Bloomberg to do an internship. It was just because like this person, like I this offer from Bloomberg, I didn't interview for it. Like I talked to this person for half an hour. He was just so impressed that I was working with like Derek, who is my second advisor, Derek Dreyer, in MPI, that like he didn't want to know like much else. So I basically got that offer just out of interning in MPI. I met amazing people who are now to some of them are now doing jobs and stuff. So a lot of networking, even in academia based fields, and it just gives you like a far wider view of the world. We are a bit constrained in bits. We live in one place, we study in one place. It's nice to get out and find something more.
Yeah, that's so true. If you guys saw in that photo I put, I was with another guy and he was from Mexico, and I just learned so much about their culture. Like, it's actually amazing. Like, besides all the academic things and all that, you just actually grow in a very holistic manner, and the kind of things you learn, incredible. Definitely, really fun. Like, this is really fun, guys. You get to like just live abroad for 6 months, like or a year, and you work in the weekdays and enjoy in the weekends. It's really the best of both worlds. I absolutely loved it. If anybody has any questions from the audience, yeah.
Yeah. I have a bunch of questions. So when you mentioned, okay, I am audible, right? You can hear me.
Yes.
Yeah. So uh, does UK come under all of the stuff that you spoke about when you said Europe, or is UK a whole different uh, thing?
Are you asking me?
Any of you?
Okay, I'll answer this. So, because of Brexit, the whole UK situation is complicated. Like now, the EU visa doesn't work for UK, and it's superbly annoying. The problem with UK is also funding. I talked to one person. I talked to this amazing guy called Kevin Buzzard at Imperial, and basically colleges like Imperial are too money oriented. Like you cannot be on the campus without paying like a shit ton of money. So UK is sort of US like in that regard. There's also Cambridge. It's possible, maybe it's easier to get internships in Cambridge. So my estimation is UK visa shouldn't be as hard as US, but it's also not as easy as Europe, and same for funding.
I feel like UK visa is actually a bit harder. I mean, just okay. So same university, actually Imperial. One of my professors actually emailed his friend in Imperial that my student is really good and you take her for a thesis. And he just said that I just don't want to get into the visa like hassles with her. That's it. So I think UK is a bit harder. Most of the people I know went to Germany, Italy. I have a friend going to Paris actually next semester. So those countries I think are a bit easier. France
Yeah, yeah. France, Germany, and Italy are like
are
the
the
best.
one. Correct.
These are
Yeah.
it's much easier. And Italy is the most fun, but Germany is the best paid. So,
Yeah.
Another question about like the resume or like the CV that you send along with your cold email. So, like when you prepare that, do you just talk about your research experiences, or can I also talk about other stuff that I've done and I don't know, link skills?
Other stuff in the sense.
I don't know if I've worked at I interned at a media company, or I've done non-profit work. Uh, like, I don't know, like, I just want to know if that's relevant in any of this.
so software development work is always relevant because it shows, like, if you've done any software development internship, it's super relevant because it shows you have coding experience and development and experience. NGO work is also, well, you can put it. Maybe it wouldn't get discussed, but you can put it. It won't harm you in any way. And I always think it's nice to put, like, some non-work things on the CV. It shows me that you're a human and not just a person who did like work stuff. And it gives us something to talk about during the interview. So I think it's a good idea. Yeah.
Yeah, cool. And about thesis, like, do we get to decide which semester we want to do a thesis in, or is it just allotted to us?
Uh, Shivangi, do you want to take this?
Yeah. Uh, why would it not be in your control? Like, I'm just trying to
No, no,
understand.
I am not sure because I always assumed that BITS decided which cell you did a thesis in, but I just heard this from you and I'm just confirming.
Okay, so no, like I mentioned, you have. Uh, uh, are you a single degree student?
Yeah, I'm a single degree MSc student without a dual degree. So,
Oh, okay, that's really cool. But yeah, if you're a single degree, then there's absolutely like no restraint. Just go whichever semester you want to. If you're a dual degree student and you have an internship, then you have to do a thesis in your first semester. That's it. But if you're a single degree student, absolutely no restrictions. Go for it.
yeah, cool. That's pretty much my questions.
Like you were showing us a timeline. Like how early should we apply? Like I'm in 2 months, so how early should I apply?
Oh,
Uh,
Like how early should I start
so
preparing and all?
yeah, so I think, like, basically if you want to do a thesis in the fall semester, which is the one which starts in September, then you should have like an acceptance by end of February, which means beginning of January would be a good time to apply. So beginning of January is where when the spring semester starts and when the professors are back in their offices, and that's a good time to start talking about the next semester. Same for also the some like spring semester. Spring semester starts in January. So if you want to start thesis in January, apply for it in beginning of the fall semester, which is September. Just don't apply during vacations. Professors are out of their offices, especially in Europe. They take so many vacations.
you're studying at 2-1, right? So there's plenty of time. Don't worry. Your 3-2 is when you should. Like, when she's talking about January, she means 3-2 wala January.
Yeah, yes, of course.
Yeah, so relax.
Yeah, yeah, lots of time.
One more question. You had mentioned writing. I think Kimaya mentioned writing samples. What does a writing sample look like?
So, so okay, I'll just tell you like one thing that happened during my internship. So in my internship, I started working in the code in September. By like mid November or like early December, I'd finished the code, and we had enough for a paper.
Okay, so is writing sample a coding related
No. Like I'll just tell you a short sort of story. And then I started like writing this paper after I had all the code work done. I started in December, and this went on till January, February, March, May almost. The writing went on till May, and my professor was not satisfied. He rewrote the entire thing. Like he really hated my writing. And so what they are looking for is to see how much maturity you have in scientific writing. So it can be a blog post, it can be a project report, it can be a paper. It's super hard to get papers in undergrad without like doing the thesis. But basically, blog post and project reports, and like just try to, so they're looking for whether like you're good at scientific writing, so you can search online about like scientific writing.
Cool. So anything that's any scientific writing that you've written,
Yes, yes, it's
uh,
a writing sample.
right. And also, so if I need a thesis in my 4-1, like do I mean, like you mentioned that like approach in 3-2, but like also you said that timelines better to apply earlier. So do you think 3-1 is the time to do it? Because I'm in my 3-1 right now. And should I be starting to look for it right now? Or should I be focusing on getting some research experience during the summer uh, that's coming in like at the end of the semester?
So do you want to go in your 4-1 or 4-2? Do you know that?
So I want to go for a PhD immediately after I graduate. So I assume that I'll have to do a thesis in 4-1.
Yeah, for sure.
So if I need a thesis in my 4-1 and I'm in my 3-1 right now, uh, do I start looking right away or do I still have time?
Hmm.
Can I answer this?
Yeah, yeah, please.
Yeah. So I think it depends on like, have you decided on an area of interest? Like, are you sure that this is what I want to work on?
I'm not sure yet. I've worked on a bunch of projects which are kind of related to each other, but I don't have a specific area yet.
Okay, so like in my team at least, it's never too early to apply. So like if anyone wanted to apply to my team, I would say like get in touch with me as soon as possible. It's never too early. In fact, like if we have time, what I would do with someone is I would give them like materials to get started. And like I would say, let's go through this book, and to so that they are sort of ready by the time they start the internship. So it's never too early. If you are already kind of sure that this is kind of something I want to do, it's never too early to start looking at profs and applying to them. In the worst case, they say, get back to me later. It's too early now to decide for that semester.
So the thing is, like, if my thesis is in 4-1, so it will be a continuation after my summer vacation, right? So if I get started on something during the summer, I can extend it over 4-1. So
Yes,
yeah, that's why I was asking if I should probably start, applying right away.
it's a good idea.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh, can
And
I ask what your MSc is in?
mine, I'm chemistry, and I work in like biochemistry projects. So.
Oh, like
Cool.
Simiran.
I mean, projects as much as I could, like COVID, everything else. Very little lab experience, but
Yeah, okay, okay. I see.
uh, what? Okay, do you suggest that? I mean, there are a lot of like specific summer research internship programs, right? Like say MyTax or like DAAD. Like, uh, I mean, they're like very extraordinarily time intensive and very competitive. Like, do you think that obviously getting those would be really cool, but like, do you think it's a better thing to sort of, cold email and get something that's more tailor made to you than to like go with these programs?
Mm, I think for me personally, cold mailing was the better alternative. Like in these competitive programs, I wouldn't have stood a chance because my CG was like not 9+.
Exactly.
So no way I was getting that anyway.
Do you
And
mind
through
if I
cold
ask you what your
my
CG is?
so my CG bef so like now it's 8.3, but that's after like getting A in thesis. Before that it was like 7.8 or something.
Fair, fair. Okay.
Which was in the lower end of like CS people. So Yeah, so I wouldn't have stood a chance. And with cold mailing, you can find something which is tailor-made, and you can also be flexible on the timelines. But the thing is that my tax and dad are very good, very well funded.
Yeah, exactly.
This is the pro, but they are sort of strict on the timeline, so you can't extend it or anything. Um,
Are
yeah,
you
that's
sure? Like you can't continue my tax?
not with my tax funding, and then there are the visa issues.
I see. Okay. But yeah, the funding is pretty good, and I think getting funding in Canada through cold mailing is very tough. I don't know anybody who's done it, and that's a my tax rebate. So if you're 9 plus, I think you're Anagha, right?
I am Anagha, but I don't have a 9 plus CG.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Right. No, I was just asking to refer to you as Anagha.
Okay, yeah.
So yeah, if you have a 9 plus, then definitely you. But if you have less than a 9, then there's just no point applying. Just straight.
Yeah, for my tax and dad, I think it's like
There's just
strict.
no point. You're just gonna waste the time because you don't. If you don't have a 9 plus, just don't get it. It's pretty infuriating. But yeah, the cutoff is 8. So if you want to go for it, I know you have a bunch of achievements and stuff which will compensate for that. So
Okay, cool. Thanks.
I have a question. Am I
yeah.
audible?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm in my 2 1 right now, and I'm interested in like a variety of topics because I haven't really explored much. By when do you think I should have like a specific area of interest in which I want to do research in?
Go for it.
Are you dual degree or single degree?
Single degree CS.
Single degree CS. So you're in your 2-1. I would say like 2-1 is like when you start your CS career because first year is just like generic topics. So you still have a lot of time. If you sort of start to form an idea by the end of your 3-1, it's good enough. Like, this is the latest I'm saying. If you figure it out earlier, it's better, but latest even by the end of 3-1 is.
And like while you're applying, you'll start getting an idea. So you don't have to be sure shot that you know it. 3-1 is you definitely need to have enough of an idea that you know where you're looking. So at least you're not just looking for CS thesis. You're specifically looking at like edge computing or something. And then while you're applying, you kind of decide which labs are even more suited. So don't be like so sure. You don't have to be perfectly sure so early. Don't worry.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kimaya and Shivangi. Like, from how you guys got your thesis to your various fields of interest, I think a lot of us are now aware of how to approach this, especially suited for like the BITS curriculum and the timeline and everything. Like, there is things like not using the word thesis while applying, or modeling according to when you want to do modeling your thesis timeline according to when you want to do your thesis. Like, this would we would not be aware of this if you hadn't told us. So also thank you for answering everyone's queries. If anyone wants to follow up on any question, then you can reach out to them on their contact info. It will be shared soon. And thank you so much for your time, speakers. Audience, please leave your feedback on the feedback form.
Okay. I think I'll
Thanks a
go ahead
lot
and.
for having us. If anyone wants to reach out to me for opportunities in MPI, in my group, or just general advising stuff, please let me know. I'll be always happy to help.
Also, if there is anyone that you know who's done like research in either biology or chemistry, thesis, I mean, like I would also like to connect with them.
I know a person and I can share her contact with you.
Great, I'll reach out to you.
Sure.
Bye, guys.
Okay. Bye bye.
Bye bye. Thank you.
Hybrid actually worked well in this, I think.